Here I'm going to do another example where we want to access two things in parallel. So in this case, we're going to work with two lists, accessing element I of list 1 and element I of list 2. To begin, let's look at this function, triangle area. It takes the base and the height of a triangle and returns its area. So we're going to use this as a helper function. It's going to do part of the job that we need to do. The function that we're going to define is called calculate areas, and it takes two lists. The first is a list of triangle bases. The second is a list of triangle heights. And its job is to return a list of the areas. So we want to calculate the area, for example, of a triangle with base 10 and height 8. And we see the area calculated here. If we've got base 5 and height 5, it should return this. And finally, for base 7.5 and height 7.5, this is the value returned. So that's the idea. In order to achieve this, we want to pass over each of the items in these base and height lists. And we want to use the triangle area function to calculate the area of the triangle with that base and height. So let's start. We want to iterate over one of these lists. If I say for base in the base list, I can get each of these items in turn, 10, 5, 7.5. But the problem is that when I'm accessing an item in that list, I don't know where I am, and so I can't access the corresponding item in the height list. So rather than looping over that, I want to loop over values representing the indices. I'll use the range function to generate a list of indices that corresponds with the indices of base list and height list, because we see here in the precondition that those two lists will have the same length. Now I'm able to access the base list at index I and the height list at index I. And these two things I'm going to use as the arguments to the triangle area function. So call on triangle area, passing in the base and the height at position I of each list. We can see looking at triangle area that it returns a float, and we want to be able to accumulate that value and return a list of areas. So I'm going to make a new variable, areas, that refers initially to the empty list. Every time I calculate a triangle area, I will append to it that area. At the end, after I've iterated over every item in the lists, I will return the areas list that will have the results. So let's run this. And pass our example calling it in the shell, and we get the answer that we expect.